Silent Hill is one of those survival horror games from the 90s that just, I absolutely love it. It creeps me the hell out, especially when I started playing it, but it's one I can just go back and play this game over and over again. I'm terrible at it, by the way, but I really love this game. This came right in the middle of what's considered to be the golden age of survival horror, which is roughly 1996 to 2004. The dates are kind of arbitrary, but that's roughly when it's seen. This is when you had Resident Evil, you had a lot of the Clock Tower games, you had D, you had Alone in the Dark, you had Night Echoes, you had, I think it's Hell's Night, and you also had the Deception games. You had a whole bunch of super awesome games that were really, really creepy coming out. And Silent Hill was able to kind of stand out from those because it was just so well done, and it mixed that sort of Japanese horror where it's more psychological and parts of it are grounded in reality, but the rest of it's like, okay, that's creepy and it has to do with spirits and everything, and it's just so well done. I absolutely love this game. So let's check it out.
In Silent Hill, you start as Harry Mason, and as you can see, he got into a bit of a car wreck, his daughter's missing, and he ends up in this really creepy town called Silent Hill, and his goal is basically to find his daughter. That's a very rough description of the plot so far, and I don't want to give away too much that goes into it, just in case you guys want to play it later. Now, in my opinion, Harry's kind of a dick. He really just seems like he's a jerk throughout a lot of this. Now, some of this is probably because of the cheesy 90s voice acting that makes him sound kind of monotone and makes some of the other NPCs also sound that way. Especially when you get to Kaufman, and also when you get to Delilah, who also just sounds really creepy, which helps her character out an awful lot. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is the fog in this game, and also what's supposed to be snow, but I think, like they do in the movies, it works better as just sort of ash that's falling down. I don't know why it works better as ash, but I never really bought it as snow, because it's like, well, it's not really accumulating anywhere, and it looks like it's just kind of melting on the ground, and that just never really settled for me. It kind of works better if it's just ash that's building up on the ground, and you don't really notice it over time. But that's just me making a weird assumption of what's going on. The fog in the game was originally meant to kind of like cover up some effects and everything, and make it a little bit easier for you to move around in the game without having to really do anything too crazy. It's sort of a way to kind of cheat a little bit when it comes to game design, but it works out really well and will become a staple of the series. Now, just from talking to the NPCs, you're going to notice there's a lot that's wrong with them.
What is this?
They've got a lot of issues,
What's going on
the
here?
town is just absolutely bizarre in every way. The NPCs are really, really good, and they definitely play their roles as being creepy and in the game. Being creepy, it's just really, really well done. Even if it is kind of still that cheesy 90s gameplay. You're also going to notice that the controls are tank controls. I'll talk a little bit more about those later, but I think they work pretty well and add to the story. Now, what Silent Hill does is it mixes Japanese horror with some US tropes as well, and it does it really, really well. Now, the tank controls, as I mentioned, they kind of suck,
What's that?
but they work well for the game.
Huh.
You can actually use an
Radio.
analog stick in this,
What's
but
going
I
on with
always
that radio?
kept on defaulting back to the tank controls. Now, you notice the radio, that adds so much creepy stuff to this game, because it only goes to static when enemies are near. And a lot of the times it's super dark and you can't really see them, and you just have the static for the radio going. It's really, really awesome.
isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook?
Now, when you
She's
fight
at
enemies,
school.
it's kind of weird. I don't particularly like it, but it does sort of add that harder element to the game where you can stand still and swing your pipe or knife or axe, whatever you have, or you can kind of draw your gun and try to take people out. Now you can see here it kind of transitions between two worlds, and that's really, really cool just because it adds just a lot of fun elements to the game. Now, it's been 20 years since I first played this game, and I remember thinking the puzzles and the clues and everything were super cryptic and just didn't make a lot of sense. But now, after replaying it, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see what they're doing. You'll notice a lot of the puzzles, especially in the real world, help you get into what's called, or at least what I consider to be like the nightmare world. It's this creepy dystopian thing where just everything is like decaying and falling apart, and that's when I think the atmosphere is a little bit better in the real world, but in the nightmare world it adds to just the craziness that's going on, and that's when it moves the plot forward a lot more, is in the nightmare world. Even though I like it when it's based in the real world, just because it feels a little bit creepier, like something like this could happen. Maybe not with the weird mutant flying monsters, but definitely something, you could see something creepy happening where you go to like a ghost town, which there actually are quite a few of them here in the US, at least where I'm from. You could go to some of these ghost towns. It's very, very weird. Specifically, while I was doing research, I found one town. It's called Centrilla, I believe is how it's pronounced, but it's in Pennsylvania. And the town has been pretty much abandoned with the exception of 4 people due to a coal fire that's been burning underneath the town for at least about 30 years now. And when you can't really get a car in there because part of the old highway has been blocked off just because of how the coal mine has destabilized the entire structure of the entire town, so it's easy to fall in places and whatnot. But it's still a really cool and creepy place if you ever, look it up and you can see images of it. Now, I found the boss fights to be kind of easy, especially this one. If you paid attention to all of the clues and whatnot, you can get through this guy pretty easy. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because at first when this happened, I thought I died. I just couldn't remember what was going on, but it's really, really weird. Now, just what made this game stand out more than others, at least for me, was your choices mattered a lot more, or at least they seemed to matter a lot more, as you add multiple endings to the game and whatnot. I could not remember for the life of me everything that you were supposed to do, and I probably should have used a guide a lot more and if I wanted to get one of the better endings. But I really just wanted to play through the game and experience all the creepiness and whatnot. So I just did my best to rush through this. I didn't devote as much time as I probably should to it, so I ended up getting the bad ending. And you'll see that cutscene at the very end. Essentially, the ending that I got, Harry is dead. Which makes you think all of this was some weird fever dream where he sort of like hallucinated all of this as he was slowly dying. It still doesn't tell you what happened to his daughter, which kind of adds a little bit more creepiness to it if you ask me. But it's still really, really good. The other 3 endings, one that I always wanted to get was the joke ending where he gets abducted by aliens, but I just never have figured out how to do that one. And the other 2 are like the normal and then the good ending, which I can't remember exactly which one was canon in the game, but I got the bad ending, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I didn't find a lot of the combat or the bosses too hard to beat, but maybe that was because I was able to pay a little bit more attention to what was going on at this point, and I sort of realized what was happening with the clues and everything. Just, I think I played parts of this better than I did at other parts.
Cheryl?
I couldn't remember exactly what to do with all the clues, and I did miss quite a few things which would have helped me get a better ending. But at least with the bosses, I had a better idea of what was happening, and I did a lot better than what I did at least the first time through, from what I can remember.
So this was a great way to end October, and just happy Halloween, everybody. You'll probably see this a little bit before Halloween, but still. Silent Hill is definitely, I think it has to be hands down my favorite survival horror game. I know that's probably crazy because Resident Evil is really good, but I like Silent Hill more just because it does some stuff that's a little bit different. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I'll get to the other Silent Hill games at some point. But until then, I will see you all next time.